All right, welcome back to Two Piece Archeries, guys. Oh wait, no, that's not us, is it? Oh yeah,
Two piece archery. Or two piece archery.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Okay. All right,
Another.
Sorry. Please. I don't know how to say that. Okay. Welcome back to Two Piece Archery, guys. Today we have Joel here from Root River Archery. He is the archery manager there. We're going to be talking about bow shop etiquette and range etiquette. So welcome, Joel.
Hey guys, thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming. So bow shop etiquette. So what do you see mostly, or what gripes do you have, as an archery manager or archery employee?
Oh, you want to start with gripes?
Yeah.
Oh man, I don't know if I say one thing that I think a positive about almost every archery customer that comes in. Everybody's coming in trying to make themselves better in some sense, like improve their hunting abilities or improve their target shooting. And so everybody has a common goal of improving, and I think that's really admirable. So like everybody's in the right mindset when they come in. I believe they're like, okay, I want to do something that is going to help me step my game up. And so while the intentions might be good, I think that there's probably a couple of things that customers would want to steer away from, just to put it politely. And number one is grabbing a bow off the rack and trying to pull it back. That is. We at our shop at Root River Archery, we do have locks, just like I think 9 out of 10 or almost, any bow shop that's ever experienced a dry fire has the little orange locks that they put either on the cam system through the limb, through the cam or on the limb. Some shops will put it around the string here, so it's maybe a little more obvious, so it goes around the string cable system. But just this weekend, I watched a couple of, teenage boys, they were very respectful of the product at first and picking it up and just setting it right back. And I had no problem with them picking up flagship bows, $1,200, $1,500 bows, unsupervised. Their parents were in another part of the store. But the moment that one of them went to pull the bow back, I quickly had to stop him. And sometimes, when you reprimand, especially somebody else's child, you feel a little bit bad. You've never met the people before. You have no relationship with them, and so you immediately kind of might look like a jerk if you don't phrase it just perfectly. And I've definitely been guilty of looking like a jerk when someone is trying to draw back a bow that they shouldn't be drawing back, or doing something with a piece of product that you wouldn't want them to do. Sometimes it's an honest mistake. They have no idea. And other times you just need to really extend your patience, I feel like, and just have some grace, because it might just be a kid or someone who's a kid at heart is making a real bad decision in the moment.
I did that one time.
Yeah, what'd you do?
I was younger, probably 12 years old or so. I was in an archery shop that did not have any locks on their bow.
Okay.
And I was picking them up, drawing them back.
You're part of the problem.
I know. And
well, no one's going to tell you what to do, though.
And yeah, but probably third or fourth bow in, the shop owner was right there watching me the whole time, never said anything to me. But third or fourth bow in, I pulled it back, and I was shooting this old Golden Eagle bow at the time. It was not a speed bow by any means whatsoever. And this one here was a high country fast bow. And I pulled it back. I went to let it up, and it took off and pulled right out of my fingers and snap. And I tell you, there's never been more scared in my life, holding on to a $1,000 bow at 12 years old and hearing that sucker snap like that. And I just slowly looked over at the shop owner. He's standing there looking over his glasses at me, and he says, "Bring it here. Let me see if you just bought yourself a new bow," he goes. And I walked over there, gave it to him, and he looked it all over, and he says, "You lucked out this time." So, but yeah, we say it because we don't want to damage bow, but you don't want to be the one doing that either.
Yeah.
That scared the hell out of me. Yeah. So you don't want to be that guy.
It's loud. It's scary. You get embarrassed.
Yeah, and like I said, it was a draw cycle I wasn't used to. You pick up a new bow, you don't know what that draw cycle's like. You don't have an arrow on there, and you can easily end up dry firing.
Yeah. If you're looking for a new bow, always just ask because we're more than willing to help you out.
Yeah.
You know,
Oh,
take
yeah.
the lock off. We'll give you a set of arrows, give you
Oh,
a
yeah.
release, walk you out to the range and shoot as much as you want.
I don't think we've ever. Out of all of us here, we have never had a customer come into the store and want to shoot a bow and left not shooting a bow. I've had guys come in who, we've had 40-pound bows, adult bows, and there's sometimes grown adults out there that grown men that can't quite draw that weight because they've never used the muscle groups in that fashion before. And if they do try to draw it, the draw cycle is going to look, their draw is going to look very, very, unorthodox, to say it nicely. And so I've had guys in the past that you can build them up quickly to 60 pounds plus, and that's I think there's a little ego to it. I think every guy thinks I can draw 70 pounds. I mean, in summer sometimes if maybe you went to an archery shoot on a Saturday morning and then you go to your friend's house for, a barbecue or, grilling out for lunch and they happen to see your bow in the back of the car. They say, oh, hey, can I shoot your bow? And for a fact that they don't hunt. They don't have their own bow. They don't have any of their own equipment. But they have this confidence that they can pick up a 70-pound or even a 60-pound draw weight bow. 60-pound draw weight bow is no joke. And there's just, I think, this false sense of the ability. Well, if Andrew can do it, I'm bigger than Andrew. If Joel can do it, well, Joel's 160 pounds soaking wet. Like, all right, yeah, of course I can do it. And when you mix that attitude with an expensive piece of product, we really don't want you to buy the bow unless you want to buy that bow. We don't want you to have to charge you for a broken bow, and we want to get you into it so you don't hurt yourself, and then want to put have to put bow hunting down forever, and force yourself into getting something like a crossbow.
There's no shame in shooting lesser poundage. I crank mine down to 60 all the time. I always buy a 70-pound bow, but I crank them down to 60 all the time when I'm target shooting and stuff. I mean, today's bows are slinging arrows so fast.
Yeah.
50-pound bows, 40-pound bows are more than enough to do most 99% of people out there are what they're asking a bow to do.
Yeah.
So shoot what's comfortable.
Yeah.
You don't have to be a macho man about it.
Yeah, I'd say along those lines too, come in open-minded. There's
Yes.
die-hard Hoyt fans, die-hard Matthews fans that they've shot nothing but Matthews their whole life, shot nothing but Hoyt their whole life. I mean, there are times where Matthews does make a better bow, Prime does make a better bow, PSC makes better, Bowtech makes a better bow. Come in there open-minded. Try as many bows as you can and feel the difference between all the draw cycles. Feel the difference between, they both might be 70 pounds, but this one just might jive with you that much better.
Don't feel like you're bugging us
Mhm.
asking to try all these different bows. That's what we're there for,
Mhm.
So many people, I just want to try one or two. We have so many excellent bows, and everyone's going to have different preferences. People ask me all the time, well, what's your favorite? My favorite's going to be different than his. It's going to be different than yours, hers, everyone else's. We just have different preferences in draw cycle and what we feel for hand shock and everything else.
Yeah.
Well, and part of that too is, your draw length. Everybody's got different bows that they're going to fit better in, so it's going to feel different to everybody. So, I think it's important to keep trying. Pulling 70 pounds on one bow is going to feel different than pulling 70 pounds on another bow too. Like
That's
It's true too.
it all feels different. So, definitely try a lot of bows.
Open mind and try a lot of bows.
Yeah.
I don't have favorites when it comes to customers. That sounds real rude, but you're able to help somebody more if they do have an open mind. If someone does come in and say, hey, look, I'm shooting this 10-year-old brand X, and I have no interest in brand Y because it just for the sake of it being brand Y. And brand Y is what my brother-in-law shoots. My brother-in-law's a jackass. So I think the last bow that I sold, was to a customer just like that who hadn't bought a bow he had never bought a new bow. Gentleman is in his late 50s and has always bought used equipment. 3, 4, 5 years old, maybe from a cousin. I think he told me that he got a bow one time from a cousin, another bow from an uncle, like all within the family. Never had a new bow until he came in a month ago and he said, I need a new bow and I'm finally going to buy a brand new one. I've looked at these on the internet and I've done some research, and he had done plenty of due diligence, and I just said, look, we're gonna start with whatever's important to you, and if price is the important thing for you, because some people come in without a budget, and that's great. If you have a $2,000 budget and you get a flagship bow, great. But if you need to get in out the door for under $1,000, just tell the salespeople that we can get you an awesome setup for way under $1,000, and you're not going to make your spouse upset. You're not going to be getting into something that sometimes there's great technology out there, but if the shooter can't harness that technology, what good is the technology? And so last guy that I sold the bow to that had an open mindset did pick a popular brand. Picked one of the top 3 brands, I think you would call them. But he had no brand bias coming into it, and I think it really served him well because he was able to shoot a half a dozen bows, and he chose that brand's bow after shooting, literally 6 different bows in total, and making a decision based off of that instead of going into it with the brand mentality. And brand loyalty is great. I understand it. But I have been known at the shop to wear a Hoyt hat with a Matthews jersey. I've had guys call me out on it, and I own both. I shoot both. I hunt with both, and I sell both. And I have no problem supporting, 2 brands, 3 brands, all the brands, because in the end, they're all making high quality product, and it's going to cater to the characteristics that the consumer wants to get out of it. That's draw cycle, how the power stroke feels, how the shock of the hand feels after the bow,
Back wall.
Back wall and let off, and all that stuff is for a lot of consumers they don't. You can tell them, you can use all these industry words. It's not going to make a lick of sense. You give them 3 different bows, and they're going to realize, oh, these are all the different feels. And all you did was just put the product in their hand. You don't need to go in there and use a bunch of sales pitch stuff and be all, use cliches and hyperboles. Just give them the bows. Say, enjoy the time shooting. You got the range to yourself. And let them come see, if they have questions, be there to answer questions. But you don't need to be there and try to sell things. Just be there and, provide them something good. So I think if a customer's coming in looking for a piece of product, the store to gravitate towards is the guy who isn't that diehard, who isn't saying this is what you have to go with. If you feel like someone is shoehorning you or putting you into a brand, that's a clear indication of bias. And
If you go to a pro shop that is pushing you to one brand, hit up a different pro shop.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah, they exist, and they exist for reasons. They make great margins on that product, and it's understandable. They can stay in business that way for a long time. But you might end up selling someone a bow that they just do not enjoy shooting, and that's the best way for another shop to pick up that customer.
Yep.
I mean, you touched base on it briefly, but budget's huge.
Yeah.
If you're coming in with $1,000 to spend, and you have your eye on a $900 bow, you're setting up yourself for failure. Typically, good rule of thumb, like that I like to tell customers, is about 50% of your budget is your bow. You have $1,000, go for about a $500, $600 bow, because there's a lot of factors involved. So our shop is actually really nice that whatever accessories you buy with the bow at the time, we'll install right then and there, free of charge. So it comes with the bow itself. So if you buy the bow, you get brand new sight, rest. We'll mount all that stuff on there and tune the bow to the best of our abilities for the price of the bow and all the accessories. So come in there with the idea that you're not just buying a bow, you're also having to get a sight, you have to get a rest, you have to get arrows, you have to maybe get a release, a bow bag. So all these accessories, they do add up. So if you set aside a few $100, few $1,000, I like to say about 50% of your budget is the bow.
If you follow that rule of thumb, you spend more on that sight and the rest, and less on the bow. You're going to shoot that setup better and have it dialed in better than, say, a $900 bow with $100 spent on the sight and rest. Yeah, if you spend more money and get that micro adjust rest, micro adjust sight, second, third axis adjustable,
Learn how to tune it.
learn how to tune it.
Higher straightness arrows.
Yep. Yeah, straighter arrows. You're going to shoot that $500 bow a lot better than you'll shoot a $1,000 bow.
Yeah.
With less accessories.
Yeah.
We see it now. There was a young man that we hired a few months ago who was a customer at the beginning of last summer, never shot a bow before in his early 20s. Made a great decision on a budget bow from one of the top manufacturers, and spent the rest of his money on great accessories. He bought a top-of-the-line single-pin sight with micro adjust. He bought a top-of-the-line rest, and he knows that sometime this year he'll be selling that bow. That bow, he's going to get about a year of use out of, and I bet you he has 10,000 shots through it already, and he's going to get another 5,000 in before he sells it.
Mm-hmm.
Replace the string cables on it for the next buyer, and he can get at least half his money back out of it. I would think if you were to take good care of it, there is a depreciating value that I know you guys have talked about how to buy a used bow, and sometimes it's good to ask your pro shop if they're willing to take in trades, if they sell on consignment, because if you buy a budget bow, that salesman might have somebody in mind, say, hey, shoot this bow for 6 months to a year. I have a young man who's 12 years old right now, but he's growing like a weed. We could probably get him into this bow in a year from now. If you want to upgrade, I already have a home potentially for this bow. And so I think a good shop manager is always going to have an idea of what the needs are of the customer base. And some needs are used equipment because of the price. That's just the way it is. And if you can stage it where people get good product, brand new, and then you have a good way to remarket that product to a second home, that keeps everybody shooting, I think, to the best of their ability for the budget that they have. The equipment, not to the best of their ability, but the equipment is tuned to the best that they can.
That top of the line sight, that top of the line rest will go to your next bow.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. When you talk about trade-ins too, so I'm more or less the point man in terms of trade-ins for the shop. I've owned probably well over 60 bows in the past 3 years. I follow the secondhand market very, very thoroughly, very well. So my biggest gripe is when people come in, and I'd say they have more of a sentimental value towards that bow, and the line that I hear the most is, well, I paid, $3,000 for the setup 3 years ago. Well, with today's market, bows are more or less like cars. You drive them off the market, the value does decrease quite a bit. And then as the new bows come out, they decrease even further. So don't be offended when I offer you a certain amount. The reason that I'm offering you that amount is I typically go by 60% of what they're selling for on the secondhand market, because I will not sell a bow with used strings. So I'll always put new strings on it. I'll always have to inspect it, have to pay somebody to fully inspect it. If it needs new cams, I need to take that into account. It needs new limbs to take into account. I typically won't bring in a bow with arrows ever. Those arrows are automatically trashed or just used, or somebody else will just take them. I won't take a bow in with them. The accessories that come with the bow, they're tailored to you. So chances are slim to nil that somebody else is buying that whole exact setup just like that. So I only really factor in just the bare bow. And 60% is quite high, because then I figured you're going to be buying a new bow right away. I'm just going to be inspecting the bow, fixing it up, and selling it. Not a whole lot of profit is made on used bows.
Yeah, I think on used bows, if a shop, and this is now on the shop perspective, I know we're talking customer perspective, but as long as the shop is willing to put in the necessary time that it takes to either inspect and or refurbish a used bow, you're pretty safe in purchasing that used equipment. If you're buying it off the rack and you ask the bow technician, hey, did you shoot this bow, or what have you guys done to this bow, and he looks at you like, it says nothing. We don't touch them. it's completely up to you as the consumer to inspect that bow. That does exist, and if the onus is on you to do that research, you definitely need to dig into it. I think for every bow that we have sold, we have done more than what is necessary because we don't want that coming back. That's a big reputation thing. If we sell you a used bow, the last thing we want is for you to have a bad experience with it. There's an understanding that it's a used piece of equipment, but the sting of a bad purchase can still exist. Even though the buyer might know that there might be something wrong with the bow, there might be some issues that I might have to fix. I have sent people new cams, just not even asking questions. We shot the bow a week previous, maybe put a new string cable on it, maybe took it all apart, cleaned it, and lubricated everything that needed to be done, and reassembled it, the factory spec, and it shot great for us. And then you ship it to a guy in another part of the country, and the day he gets it, he calls you up and says, "Hey, this cam's noisy. I can't draw it back, without it making noise." And you know that when you boxed it up that it was perfect, but you can't risk that reputation, being tarnished. So the shop sometimes just needs to say, "Okay, well, we'll just send you." In this case, it was a new cam, and you just sometimes lose money on. There's no other way to put it. Shops can lose money on used equipment, and that's why 60% I feel like is a fair number when you take into account fees that might be taken from different avenues when we sell it, but then going down to breaking or broken parts that happened shortly after the purchase. You don't want to leave somebody high and dry and say, "Hey, no, sorry, I know you've had it for a day and now it's making this new noise that we had no idea about." That would just make you look like a jerk, and sometimes you do lose a little bit of money on the used bows from a shop perspective. But I think that any consumer would see that a good shop is doing everything they can to provide a really good piece of used equipment.
Mm-hmm. So I don't deal with it much anymore because I don't work on the bows as much as I used to. But back when we did, it was a timeline factor, especially around hunting time. So have realistic expectations in terms of timelines. If you're coming in there late August, early September, late September, October, whatever, don't expect to have a full bow tuned, done, arrows cut, everything overnight. You're having that same expectation as probably 3 dozen other people, and there's 4 dozen bows back there ready to be serviced. We only have 3-4 bow techs. Most shops don't even have that. They have 1 or 2 bow techs to work on bows. So have realistic timelines. When we don't at the shop give days anymore, how many days it takes, because there's so many unknowns now. Once you do this, it might change that. You change timing, and it might affect little things here and there. It might affect your paper tear. So we don't give timelines anymore. Just know that when we take in a bow, we're going to do it to the best of our abilities and get it done in a timely fashion.
Yeah, we're hunters ourselves, and we get it. And we have that in mind all the time, trying to get that bow back to you as quick as you can. We get that guy that the string blew up and he's leaving this weekend for a hunt, and we get it, but we have, like you said, 12 plus other bows in the back on that same timeline all the time, or that same time crunch. So we do our best, absolutely, because we know the feeling of being without a bow during hunting season. But like you said, you got to have realistic expectations. That shop is going to start getting incredibly busy around August, beginning of August, every single year. Every single hook in the back will be filled with a bow. And we're working on as fast as we can, but I guess best advice we can give you is beat the rush,
Yeah, bring it in early.
Bring it in early. Yeah.
And the rush sometimes isn't intentional. It's not like a bunch of people wait around and say, "Oh, yeah." There are those people that do wait too late to get their setup going, and
Yep.
that that's kind of too bad for them in some cases, and they do feel that burn. They may never make that mistake again. But then you've got the guy that on opening weekend, took his stand out to a brand new spot that he spent all summer getting ready for. Maybe in the spring he was going in there and cutting shooting lanes, and he had the spot picked out, but he had never been in that tree before. You get up there at 4 a.m. in that tree, and you might have a shot on a deer, for that first deer of the season that you get a shot on, or a potential shot. You get to full draw. You get to full draw, but you don't get to take a shot. And this happened multiple times last year, and the nerves of being at full draw and realizing what's happened over the past few seconds, the past minute, has you rattled. And now you're at full draw with a 70-pound bow with a sharp razor blade hanging off the end, and you're standing on a 20-inch by 14-inch platform in some cases, maybe a little bigger if you're willing to pack in a little more weight. But you're trying to let this bow down now, keep your balance. Might be cold. If it's early season, the bugs are out, and you can derail a bow by you grip that just a little bit too tight, or if you're wearing a glove, or if you have just too much sweat on your hand that you weren't used to because of all the nerves that you never shoot with. If you never shoot with nerves all summer long, and the most sweat that gets on the bow is from a hot, humid day, at a shoot, you're not going to know how the bow's going to react when you're letting it down, and derailing a bow can happen so easily. And I think it's really disheartening for somebody up in the tree stand then, the moment that happens. And the last thing they want to do is, an hour or 2 or 3 later, once they're out of the woods and the truck's packed up and they finally get to the bow shop, is, the guy behind the counter, snickering or, doing something, saying something funny, and saying, I'm not going to be able to touch this thing for a week. The customer doesn't want to hear that. And I think that any real hunter who's had enough experiences in the woods, who works at a pro shop, is going to sympathize with that guy. And they're going to do everything they can. And there might be a queue, there might be a wait, but there are certain situations where that if you just stay an extra half hour that night, the bow looks to be, the limbs look good, the cams look good, all you need to do is just get the string and the cables back on, and that guy would be set. It makes you feel good to stay an extra half hour just to get one bow done that might get a guy who is out in the woods that weekend. You've got maybe 2-3 dozen bows of guys that waited until the last minute. And not that you're trying to play favorites, but you definitely have a lot more respect for somebody who's really out there getting after it, who spent all summer maybe getting ready, and maybe more, maybe longer getting ready, and they just have a stroke of bad luck. And so as a shop employee, a shop manager, you want to be able to help out those people in tough situations. And during season, those situations just they multiply as the weeks go on. And so it's not just people waiting to the last minute. It's not just people that want a brand new setup for this year. It's also people that are just like you, that went out maybe opening weekend or opening week, specifically took some time off because they had great expectations for the season, and then they think their season is ruined in an instant. When you can give that person their bow back the next day, and they're out hunting that weekend or maybe the following night. It really makes you feel good. The customer has, a great experience, and in the end, you're allowing them to go enjoy the outdoors, regardless of the brand, regardless of the other piece of equipment. You're getting them back out in the field.
You hit on it there too. That time of the year, we have all those bows in the back. We're coming in early before the shop opens, and we're staying late after the shop closes every day that week.
Mm.
We'd love to be hunting.
Yeah, we are working on getting those bows back into everyone's hands because, like I said, we know the feeling. So, I don't think it's really that big of an issue that we have customers complain about waiting, but I guess sometimes we feel bad about how long it might take, and just have realistic expectations during so.
Touch on range rules. Your shop has a range. Crazy things have you guys seen at your own home ranges?
Outdoor range is the worst.
Yeah.
You get people just, they're done shooting and they start walking down to the target, and other people are on the line of full draw yet. That's not cool.
Yeah.
No matter where you're at, that's not cool. You gotta be mindful of the other archers out there.
That's a big thing at the county parks around here.
County parks is bad.
People have no problem being on the next lane, next bail over from you, and they might be 15 yards away from each other, side by side. But when you see somebody's draw, you see some of the groups that these people are putting together, and the equipment they're shooting, you're waiting for just one of those variables to finally come into play, and an arrow's going where it shouldn't.
I was at County Park one time. I watched a crossbow blow up. The limb bolt, the head of that limb bolt, went flying down range so far, like we never found it. Like it went over the bales. I saw it fly down there, and that could have went anywhere. Somebody was standing, alongside at a bale right next to his or something while he was shooting. He could have been struck by that sucker, or bolt or an arrow flying off,
Don't shoot broadheads at burlap targets. Don't shoot broadheads at almost any target unless it's a broadhead target and you ask the range.
Talk to the range officer before you do the broadhead.
Yeah, if there's someone who's specifically watching the range, if you're at a bigger range and there's somebody that's actually watching, you need to have a discussion with them. I don't know of any range or shop that I've ever been to where you can just walk on and start shooting broadheads. You need to ask them for the broadhead target if you're going to be doing any broadhead tuning. We have,
which we do. We supply broadhead.
We do, yeah, exactly, and we're happy to get you the broadhead target. It's a little bit more expensive to shoot with the broadhead target because we go through them quickly. You can burn through a couple of broadhead targets in a season very easily. But we have multiple burlap targets that are intended for stop and crossbow bolts. And one side is completely ripped to shreds with the internal material pulled out because someone shot multiple broadheads into it and wanted to retrieve them. Obviously you want your arrow back, but I don't think people realize that the burlap, closes around the broadhead, and that's the reason why there's no broadheads allowed. No broadheads are allowed because of how quickly it deteriorates a target. So I think that's a big one. Going down range. It's obviously a safety issue, and you want to keep people as safe as possible. But ranges are not. It's not like no one's retiring off of building an archery range. It's a tight budget, and any club, ask your local club board. Go to if you ever are curious, you go to a summer shoot at some of the local clubs. You go to a 3D shoot. Those targets are all a few $100s each, and you're paying maybe $15, $15 maybe $20 to get into a shoot. That's not that much money in comparison to how much these targets cost. And when you're going in there and blasting broadheads, it just quickly kills the targets, kills the foam. And some people don't know any better, but some people also just don't care. And I think that type of attitude. I don't welcome that type of attitude, the do not care attitude. It's not my problem attitude, and I think that it's other people's responsibility. If you see somebody on the range either being dangerous with not waiting for people to clear the firing line, or shooting broadheads at a target. You as a responsible archer, outdoors person, I think has the responsibility to either say something to them, and if you're uncomfortable saying something to them, go find someone who is an employee or maybe responsible for the range.
Read the signs and follow the rules.
Yeah.
That's the biggest thing. We have signs up for a reason, and constantly you see people walk right by and do exactly what the sign says not to do.
One thing I've noticed, this is more for the indoor range. It's less of an issue on the outdoor range because people have more kind of elbow room. But it's almost like when people see one person on the range already inside, it's like they don't they don't want to get on the line with them. They're not used to shooting in close quarters. And I think as like a hunter, I think that seems to be like typical. But target archers, like to us, there's plenty of room. Like just jump right in, say hi. Like we're not gonna bite. We're used to 2-foot sections when you're at an indoor target competition. So to us, there's plenty of room. But other people, they get kind of nervous and not want to jump in, and so definitely just come in and say hi. Like most archers are some of the nicest people you meet. So,
speaking right, incredibly nice people out there. So,
I can't think of really any other glaring, range. If you follow the rules, I mean that's it. And this might sound a little, condescending, but if someone, from an authoritarian standpoint, if it's the 19-year-old shop kid and he asks you to mind the rules, you don't need to give him any attitude. You don't need to give him a hard time. You don't need to. You can question, but you don't need to look at him like he's got two heads on his shoulders. These rules are in place for a very specific reason. A couple of days ago, I had a gentleman who wanted to test shoot a crossbow, and I loaded the crossbow for him. I cocked it, loaded it, put it on the table, and he was to my right, and he immediately tried to he had a bag. He immediately tried to set it down in front of the table, in front of the crossbow. So if the loaded crossbow was pointed this way, he took his bag, and he started to step in front of the loaded crossbow. And I immediately stopped him. I had my hand on his arm, and I told him to stop, and he pulled away from me like he thought I was, some people don't like, physical touch. I understand that. But this guy was literally, now 2 inches downrange from a loaded crossbow. And I had to explain to him how dangerous that was. And this is a gentleman who, by his own admission, is a firearms enthusiast as well, and says that he has great, understanding for range rules. And you can just see someone who does have a passion, whether it's for archery or for firearms. Even if you know the rules, you can forget them, or not forget them, but you have a lapse, just for a split second. And danger, you can put yourself in a very dangerous situation. And it doesn't take someone who is a sage, an elder, to say, hey, you're not following the rules. It might be that 18, 19-year-old kid who just sees something dangerous and says, hey, please don't do that because it is dangerous in this way, and we have this rule in place to prevent you from hurting yourself and maybe hurting other people. So yeah, as long as you can just follow the rules, we really appreciate it.
complacency is pretty dangerous.
Complacency is the killer in some senses, some cases.
Well, cool. Thanks for stopping by, Joel. Appreciate it. Thanks for kind of giving us an inside of, behind the counter of an archery shop.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah, it's fun. Hopefully you come back again and do another podcast with us.
It's a long drive.
Yeah.
But I'm willing to make the drive again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, sounds good. Well, thanks for tuning in, everybody. Until next time. See ya.
See ya.
See you guys.